Welcome to the podcast Bridging the Divide. This is part of a social action organized by the Women in Mathematical Sciences in Cyprus. The action is funded by the British Council in Cyprus, and the grant is managed by Women on Top. My name is Margarita Zachariou. I'm a researcher in the Cyprus Institute of Neurology and Genetics, using mathematics and computation for biology and medicine problems. And I'm also the action leader and the president of the network. And it's with a great pleasure that I welcome today here Mrs. Josie Christodoulou, the Commissioner for Gender Equality in Cyprus. And the purpose of this event, this podcast, is to amplify the message of the event we did back in June with the network, where Josie was one of our esteemed speakers in our panel discussion. And this event focused on bridging the gap, the gender gap, using data-driven policies. So we tried to bring together researchers, stakeholders, policymakers to discuss a critical question, really, how can we bridge this gap with data-driven policies? So thank you very much, Josie, for being here. And I was hoping you can give us a short summary of the vast amount of work you're doing these days as the commissioner related to these aspects.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. And I would like also to congratulate you publicly for all the work that you are doing. I think it's important and it's crucial that we give visibility to the issue of mathematical sciences and the involvement of women in the mathematical sciences. It's crucial that we give visibility to women working in areas where they're underrepresented, or even if they are not represented, to give them visibility. So congratulations on your work, and thank you for having me. Now, as the Commissioner for Gender Equality, I'm responsible in drafting the national strategy for gender equality in collaboration with all ministries and deputy ministries. This is the first time that we're actually trying to mainstream gender horizontally in different policies rather than traditional policies being strictly in labor or education. We're trying to involve all ministries and deputy ministries, trying to pass the message from top down as well, but always in collaboration with civil society, NGOs, women's rights organizations, even trade unions, employers, organizations, and of course academic institutions. And I think it's crucial that all stakeholders are sitting around the table and discussing the difficulties, the barriers that we are facing when it comes to gender equality. And one of the efforts we're doing, and I think this is it's related to what you are examining exactly, is that we're working very closely with the Statistical Service, trying to increase the sex desegregated data in all aspects of life, because it's important that you have quantitative information in order to inform policy. And this is something that we have started in March 2023, and we keep updating statistics. Actually, the Statistical Service has published gender-related statistics in the end of 2023, and we're expecting a new publication with new information by the end of the year. And it will help us to inform policy.
So you've actually covered very nicely the data gap part that helps us also bridge the policy gap. But I think what you mentioned about the data, sometimes we think we have the data in a way that can help us, right? But if the sex and gender is not recorded, or if we don't, like in medicine, for example, if we don't know whether it was before menopause or after menopause, then this data is not very useful for us if we have a hypothesis to test on that. So we know there is a gap, let's say. And I'm guessing with your exposure to many different sectors, you must have seen more or less which areas suffer, let's say,
the most. I think it's sex desegregated data. It's we need to improve it in all areas of life. And for example, we're now trying to gather information about in relation to how many women are working in shipping or in tourism, and in which professions and which sectors exactly, because we need to know our population. We need to have a bigger picture. So, for example, we're doing this exercise now. I think it was finalized with the Statistical Service and the Deputy Ministry of Shipping and Deputy Ministry of Tourism. And this will help us now design a qualitative research in relation to understand the different needs between women and men in those areas of life and areas of activity. And we're doing the same with the Deputy Ministry of Culture, for example. The Deputy Ministry of Culture has just published a call where it calls for women working in cinema or those directors that they have directed a film or a small film, so that we know how many women are within this industry and whether they're facing any different problems that men do. So it's important. It's in all areas of life. And this will help us also with a new action that we're undertaking, the so-called gender budgeting, where you need to have the numbers. You need to know how many single parents you have, how many are women, how many are men, the ages, the ethnicity. So it's not only sex desegregated data. You need to see the whole area of background, of the people's background, in order to have more targeted policies. And the same with the gender budgeting. We're doing this exercise now so that each ministry and deputy ministry can think. So I'm designing an X policy, and it's for whom? Let's say it's for single parents. How many are women? How many are men? How many are having, what is the financial status of these people? Yeah. This will help us to design more targeted policies. So to answer the question is that it's in all areas of life that we're trying to improve the statistical data. I know it's not enough.
It's a start, though, and I think you mentioned two very important things. One is this collaboration of the statistical service in this case and experts in collecting, in choosing what data you need. And this is how you move forward, really. Yeah. And the other very important thing is you're not quantifying only how many, but also why. Yes. And this is what really helps, I guess, designing the effective policy. Because in terms of numbers, we have
more or less,
yes. Not in all areas, but we do. But and this brings me to the next question: the barriers that are there, which some are Cyprus specific, let's say cultural, institutional. Some are general. We see the same story happening in different parts of the world, right?
Yeah. I think you answered the question. I think the most difficult barriers that we're facing is the culture. Why are you want to quantify how many women are single parents? They're single parents. They will. No, this is not how the way it goes. We need to have a bigger picture. This population is divided by 50% women, 50% men, more or less. And of course, women and men are not a homogeneous group. There are groups within women and men, disabled women, disabled men. Do they have different needs? Yes. But so it's, going back, I would say that it's a cultural issue, that why we need to see women and men differently, because they have different needs, is the answer. But it's not always enough. When you want to explain to people why you're doing this, it's because we really have a problem when it comes to gender equality in Cyprus. And not only in Cyprus, I think it's as you mentioned, it's a global issue. So, and then with the culture comes the system. And when I'm saying the system, I don't mean the state system. I mean the societal system, which still is a patriarchal system. And it's not easy to bend. You need to work hard for this. So culture and system are the most crucial barriers that we need to overcome. And we are, but it takes time.
And would you say, you've run a lot of awareness campaigns the past year, and one of them was also for science.
Yes.
And would you say this is not an antidote, but the first sort of approach in, first of all, acknowledging that there is a gap?
Yes. Well, the way we're working, the Office of the Commissioner for Gender Equality, is to work holistically. If I do only awareness-raising campaign, we're just ticking boxes. Oh, we did this campaign, good, there are women working in this area, good for them. And then what? So you need to work holistically. So if I take the example of women in sciences, what we did, okay? And in collaboration, again, with different ministries. So in March 2023, the President Christodoulou, announced 10 scholarships for women above 25 years of age. And the reason is to give the opportunity for women who didn't have the opportunity to study earlier in that life to study. And we decided to focus in the field of sciences. And we added this year shipping and blue professions. Yes. So it's to give motivation. So first is motivation. Second, and it's not with this priority. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. Second is to raise awareness that there are women role models in these fields, where you can raise awareness not to the public as such, but also to younger women, so that they can dream and they can see other women involved and think, okay, maybe I should follow, maybe I can follow that as well. So you create role models. Third is a collection of data. We need to know how many women and men are working in this area. And then you're going in specific target groups. For example, one of the most vulnerable groups when it comes to technology, because in sciences we have the STEM, it's technology, we decided that we will go to women living in rural areas and farmers and train them on how to use technology and upskilling them when it comes to how to use technology and sell their own products, for example, through their phone. So we're trying to work holistically and not ticking boxes. If we start ticking boxes, we're losing the game. So this is the effort of the office, and the most important action of the most important actions, if I may say, in this cycle of events, is also to start breaking stereotypes within schools, to start from education. And with the collaboration of the Ministry of Education, from this year, the career counselors will be trained on gender stereotypes, on unconscious biases, so that they start guiding our kids, boys and girls, based on their skills, inclinations, and not based on stereotypes. So we need to work systematically, it's a key word, and horizontally, but also holistically.
I think this is very important, because we have all experienced, I think, in school, this advice that comes either from teachers or counselors that, women are better in caring professions and men are better in science and technology. And sometimes it's also unconscious, right? This advice. So you train the trainers, they say sometimes, you train the consultants now. I think it sounds like a very strategic point. And I think it's also very interesting that what you mentioned about the rural areas, this is basically you used an intersectional approach there.
Exactly.
You said it's also the poor areas and the gender,
the distant areas
interacting,
as well, yes.
Because perhaps for a woman that she's in a very affluent family and she has studied in very prestigious universities, there will be a different career path than someone from a different background. So all very
but it's what I mentioned earlier, that women are not a homogeneous group. Women and men are coming from different backgrounds. That is social background, educational background, economic background. So it's not one size fits all. We need to move away from that methodology. And in order to do that, again, I will repeat that, we need to work together. The state has its own obligation. The individual, they have their own obligations, and then you have civil society and academic institutions and other organizations that can come in and fill those gaps so that it's what I call the sandwich method, actually. So you have the top down, that it comes from the state or European or international organizations to the state. And then you have civil society organizations that they know the reality on the ground, and you are pushing for change. So that's why I stole it actually from one woman, that it's the sandwich method. And this is the way forward. Yes.
So would you say this is one thing that we're missing in a sense, or we're starting to build it? Because it could be, sometimes we think of innovation are using a new data approach to analyze like AI, but innovation here could be really bringing all the relevant parties to the table and starting, I think another initiative that I really like that you did last year was the participatory construction of the strategy, because sometimes you really need to go to the people that face the specific challenges to gather this. And I heard a very nice example in a podcast in Zambia where they were planning to, in rural areas, they're collecting water. There's no clean water, right? So where do you put the wells? They asked the women that collect the water, where is the best place? And that's how they put it. It wasn't a top-down that you need to have X number of wells. It was also...
No, the top-down is where you want to go. Is gender equality a priority? Is it a horizontal priority? And if it is, what are we going to do? Yeah. So I think first is the top down is a political will. Yes, if you have the knowledge, better. Okay. But then you need to work with the people that you are going to affect with your policies. So the policies you design have an impact. And you need to ask those that are being influenced directly or indirectly. And yes, this is why we went through the participatory democratic process in designing the strategy. For me personally, it's important that civil society, and with civil society, I mean all different stakeholders that are not part of the state, to feel ownership, that a state's strategy belongs also to them. And if I may, Margarita, just to add, this is why it's important that we have the National Machinery for Women's Rights funding, where we can fund even with small amount of money, women's rights organizations, other NGOs, or civil society that are registered, of course, and they're working on gender equality and promoting women's rights, because we need to have complementary actions to the strategy. So it's not easy, but I do believe that it's the way forward. And if we manage to be systematic, I think we're going to see positive results. And something that I didn't announce, maybe I should have, but I didn't, for many reasons that I will explain. I was reading the report of the UN on gender equality and SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And Cyprus now is listed 39th across the world. And it says, the report, that we can see a steady progress. And I think this is positive. And the reason why I didn't announce it, it's a positive, actually, report. I didn't announce it because I don't see those reports and indexes as a competition between states. No country has achieved substantial gender equality. And I use these indexes and reports as tools, again, that will inform our policies. And I think it's important that we pass along the message that these indexes and reports is not a competition. It shows us our gaps that we need to work towards too, in order to improve. And also, if I may, I know that it's not directly related to this, gender equality, women's rights is a human rights, and it's not a joke. And it's not a competition either between women and men. It's a human right to be free to decide what you want to be it in mathematics, be it in social sciences. You need to be informed of the difficulties, the barriers, both women and men, though, of the barriers, and not just, women, you need to think that one day you will have a family, you will be pregnant. But men, you can be anything, and it's okay. Women and men, boys and girls need to be informed, the positives and negatives of each profession.
And while policy changes are happening in the background to make the structural changes, let's say that they don't need to face this challenge. Yes, they need to know, of course. But I think it's very interesting what you mentioned about the indices. They give us an idea of where, as a whole, we're going, but they don't have the resolution to tell us in individual. I mean, they do have like the power and the education and so on. But on the ground, where you are looking at the inequalities on a daily basis, it's not something that, you take the index, okay, now my work is done. There's nothing to do. And it's also very heterogeneous, what you see, right? So
yes,
it's a positive news, as you say, but I still feel also that we have a lot to do.
That's why I don't announce it. It's very easy for me to show, look, we're doing great. Even the World Economic Forum upgraded Cyprus from 106 to 86. Good for us. Well done. We're moving on. I will celebrate when we have full and substantial equality. Of course, I'm happy when I see international organizations upgrading our country. It shows that we're doing something, that we're moving. And let's not forget that this is not something that it started now. It's been ages that we're working towards women's rights and gender equality. Now we're trying a new methodology. That is, as I said in the beginning, to mainstream gender horizontally and work much closer with civil society organizations.
And you're also, in essence, monitoring this process as well, right? So a part of the data is for designing the policy, and then while the policy is being in place, then you also gather this data to...
Yes, actually we're in daily communication with different gender equality officers of each ministry and deputy ministry that they've been appointed last year. And we're in contact daily, and we're having meetings as well. We had one last week, if I'm not mistaken, so that everyone is updating everyone as well. It's important to discuss also their own problems and barriers that they're facing within their own ministries and deputy ministries. So we're monitoring. We are evaluating, but not in the sense, so well done, we're doing good. We're evaluating in that we have achieved what we wanted to. But of course, we are trying now to build a platform of NGOs so that they will evaluate the process that we're doing and we're making when it comes to gender equality.
Kind of, we do this in science as well. So you publish a paper and then your peers evaluate. Yes.
Yes. And for me, it's important. I call it constructive criticism. So I don't think, for example, that what you did will have an impact, but I'm expecting for some suggestions and possible solutions, because criticism is easy. You didn't do that, or you're not good at this, or whatever. But if you're working closely with organizations, they can come back and say, this is a possible solution. I think it's fantastic that we did that, but it's problematic for A and B, C reasons. And here are some possible solutions.
That's very nice. And I'm thinking now the budgeting part. This is allocating resources, right? Yes. But there's also in some organizations now, I'm thinking the WAM in the US, and I think it's the women. It's an initiative for the health of women, let's say, and they have calculated the cost of not having a gender budgeting in place and how many hours are lost because women's health issues are not addressed. So you end up being out of the workforce, or when you have caring responsibilities, it's mostly women. So the economic burden of not taking this into account, just looking at it from the health point of view was already pretty large.
And actually, thank you for bringing it up, because I think there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to women and health. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, Margarita, it's a worldwide issue that we are not examining women and health as in depth that we should. We are focusing more on sexually reproductive rights, and we should. And this is where our strategy also is focused. When it comes to health, and also this new policy that we have implemented with the Ministry of Health for the visiting of midwives at home. I think it's important, but I think we need to go more into depth when it comes to women in health. And menopause, you mentioned that we need to have more targeted policies in the different ages of women's of the population of women and men. But if I'm not wrong, please go ahead, inform us. There is more research when it comes to men's health rather than women's health.
True.
And we need your input towards that direction as well.
Yes, unfortunately, it's been, let's say, most clinical trials and experiments used to take place in male animal or in men. And yes, this has generated a huge data gap. Now policies are coming in place from funding agencies that, if you're only focusing on male mice, let's say, you should justify why. Is this a disease that only affects men? Otherwise, where is your balance set to study equally the effects? And it's unfortunately one of the reasons that we see drugs affecting women differently, either not working or having more side effects. So there's a huge gap there that requires the equivalent policies, and it has to be a priority, as you said. If the European Commission decided that I really want to invest on women's health, because actually, yes, because usually it's important not just for ethical reasons. At the end of the day, many decisions are made based on economic basis, right? Because it's costing me, let's say.
Yes.
Then funds will be allocated with this research area as a priority, and things will accelerate.
Please do come with suggestions. Our strategy, it's flexible. So we cannot in a year or 1.5 years, because it's a 3-year strategy. And we wanted it to be a short, in terms of period, a short strategy. And we are flexible in order to add other policies that are specific. We need to prioritize, as you said, but it's important that we addressed a few issues. So please do come with suggestions. We're always open. And the example you gave me, it reminded me of the issue of violence against women, that it costs to the European Union as a whole 300-something billion euros. So, and what we're trying to think now is how to invest more in prevention, because in the long run, you will save money if you invest in prevention, and not only money, you're saving lives and families and the society. So there are multiple positive impacts if you work on prevention. So if we work in prevention when it comes to women and health, it's almost the same as in violence against women. So please do come with specific suggestions.
So I guess we're back to having these different parties communicating, right? Because there are academics that want to do this work, for example, either for the gender equality in the social sciences, let's say, or in the medical, or even in environmental sciences. Why are we discussed this in the event? Why are less women applying for particular grants for solar panels? Is it because they cannot afford even the small amount they have to pay? But it's because you said about gender equality as a social issue. I don't think it's a social issue as such. I think it's a political issue, it's a social issue, it's a health issue, it's a financial issue. It's an issue that covers all areas of activity. And it's important that we pass the message through this podcast that it's not a social issue. If you invest in women,
and women are independent and are financially strong and empowered, at the same time, you are empowering her own family, the society, and at the end of the day, the economy of a country. So that's why I think it's a political issue and a financial issue and a health issue and any other issue when it comes to gender equality. And again, that's why we're trying to work with all stakeholders. We need that expertise, for example, and I think it's also related to women in sciences, the issue of gender inequality and climate, gender inequality and energy, how energy affects differently women and men. And I think we need to address those issues because they are being affected differently, but we don't have the data to show it. We just know it empirically, but not through research. So it's important.
So there's lots of room for research there. Excellent. So I guess this sums up quite a bit of the discussion. Any closing remarks, any hopes for the future?
I think if we keep working all together, be open about it, and also be open and work together in a collaborative manner, I think we will at least accelerate the process towards gender equality. And a message, I think, to other women is that they need to keep going and they should come in and create those synergies in order to put an end to when it comes to gender inequalities.
And close the gaps where we can.
And close the gaps where we can.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being
Margarita.
with us today, Josie, and for your insights and this wonderful talk. And to our listeners and viewers, I hope you also enjoyed the conversation. Stay tuned if you like this type of discussion on the gender gaps and what we can do in terms of data-driven policies to bridge them for more activities from our network. Thank you.
Thank you.